The county engineer held up the plat in one hand and Karen's email in the other, then told her to shut the whole project down, right there on the spot. That moment felt like watching someone's dominoes fall, except these dominoes were legal papers and the last one knocked Karen clean off the stage. The trench crew stood frozen by my frontage shovel still dirty, while a deputy asked the foreman to step away from the flags and start naming names. And Karen, who showed up expecting a victory lap, watched her paperwork become the thing that buried her. 3 days earlier, she had been smiling on my gravel drive like she already owned the view, that kind of smile that's all polish and policy, not warmth. Not loud, not dramatic, just a practiced managerial warmth that says we're friends until you disagree. She introduced herself as if she were delivering cookies and bylaws. "Mr. Hale, I'm Karen Mercer, president of Briar Glen Estates." She came dressed for mediation, leather folder in hand, ready to turn a neighborhood gripe into an invoice. My land, 5 acres, a modest house, a workshop, and a skinny frontage along the stone entrance to Briar Glen Estates, touched their edge but was recorded as excluded from their plat and covenants. I checked the deed like I check flood exclusions twice, line by line, because paranoia is just cheap insurance. So when a neighbor I'd never met pulled up and said, "You didn't get this from me," then handed me a screenshot of the HOA board agenda with my address under something called Boundary Integration Opportunity, I felt my stomach drop. They'd been talking about my land before they talked to me. And that wording, it was deliberate, not a mistake. She arrived the next afternoon, all calm efficiency. She handed me a packet titled Voluntary Road Maintenance and Architectural Harmony Agreement and used the word voluntary, like seasoning, 1 paragraph voluntary, 2 paragraphs later mandatory, just administrative phrasing. She smiled as if semantics could convert exclusion into obligation. I told her my tract was excluded and recorded. She laughed like I'd made a quaint, charming mistake. That was my first real clue. People who speak of compliance as a virtue often treat rules as options. I began building my case the way you build anything you don't want to lose, meticulously. I printed the county plat matched parcel numbers, saved screenshots, opened a folder, and labeled it Timeline in block letters. I drove to where I could legally photograph her lot and found a pergola pushed into a setback and no county permit hypocrisy in a neat little package. I answered her packet by certified mail with copies of my deed exception and the county plat a polite refusal and a promise to sign nothing. I saved the green return card like a trophy. 3 days later, they escalated. The management company placed my address into temporary enforcement status pending board review. They sent a PDF board packet that still had working file metadata, a sloppy but telling breadcrumb convert _ excluded _ parcel _ phase 2. Not a typo in intention. I called the county recorder. She confirmed there was no annexation, no recorded easement, no legal basis to drag my land into Briar Glen. I printed that email too. Evidence gets stale on a screen, but stays alive on paper. Then came Friday morning, and the morning smelled like diesel and disruption. A utility truck rolled up an irrigation van, followed a pickup loaded with pavers and trenching tools, and Karen stepped out in sunglasses and white slacks like she was hosting a ribbon cutting for a road she imagined she already owned. Workers began spraying paint along my frontage. A man uncoiled low-voltage cable, and one of the laborers drove a spade into my side of the marked line. I put my mug down, walked to the survey pin, and told the man to stop. Karen didn't bother to look at the worker. She was looking at me. "This will move much faster if you don't make it adversarial," she said, which was a little smile with a bulldozer behind it. The mechanism was obvious. Make physical facts on the ground first, then make the fight expensive enough that signing seems easier than resisting. I started recording. I filmed her supervising the truck logos, the spray marks crossing my survey stake, the permit portal on my phone showing no record for the address. I asked the foreman if he had a recorded easement. He looked at Karen first, and that was the answer. "Ma'am told us this was already cleared through the community," he said. "Community isn't a county office," I replied, and she told the workers to continue. Her voice never got dirty. She let other people wield the shovels. She called 911. Her voice on the line tightened and became high, fast, wounded. "We have an obstructive property owner interfering with authorized utility work at the Briar Glen entrance." That was her stage direction, turn private coercion into official pressure. When the deputy arrived, she was mid-speech about shared corridors and emergency lighting. I let her weave the yarn first, then I handed the deputy my deed, the plat, the recorder's email, and asked the foreman again if he had anything on paper. He said no. The deputy asked dispatch to note the incident, wrote a number on his card, and told the foreman to keep his workers off the marked line until verified. I called a surveyor, had him restake the frontage before sundown, called my attorney, and had preservation letters sent to the HOA, the management company, and the contractors. By dinner that night, Karen had filed for emergency injunctive relief, a legal temper tantrum with incident numbers, plat, copies, and frames from my video. That's when the story stopped being a two-person scuffle and started feeling cinematic. An old title officer I knew dug through the county recorder backlog and found a rejected filing. The HOA had tried to record a maintenance memorandum against a few non-member parcels, mine included. It had been bounced for lack of legal basis. That was the first twist. They had tried and failed before. They knew they were on shaky ground. Then an irrigation estimator called me privately and forwarded internal notes, highlighted language, president authorization, non-member strip complete before objection. In plain English, rush the work, create leverage, make the homeowner bleed money until they sign. That wasn't beautification, that was manufacture. Karen threw paper back at me, a warning, a cease and desist, a color map shading my frontage, as if it were already under HOA control, referencing a revised plat book that did not exist. Every time they shoved, they left fingerprints, envelopes, postmarks, certified labels, email headers, the fake map, the unsigned scope sheet, the recorder's rejection, the file metadata. I preserved it all. Because paper is stubborn, and so is the truth when you force it into the record. Monday morning, Karen organized a compliance session, folding chairs, bottled water, 2 board members, the contractor foreman, a management rep, and off-duty deputy, doing private security, neighbors pretending not to watch. She stood beside a spool of cable and smiled at me like she'd already won the crowd. "Mr. Hale, this could have been cooperative," she said, all beneficent glare. I held my folder and said, "You confuse confidence with jurisdiction." The air changed when the county engineer showed up, not alone, but with the on-duty deputy and my surveyor. The contractor's face shifted from bold to pale. The engineer stepped onto the frontage, opened a plat, and said slowly, "Before anyone puts steel in the ground, we need to be clear about where this line is." Karen tried to talk over him. He stopped her with a hand. "You're going to listen now." He pointed to the stakes, then to Karen's shaded sketch, and read the law like a bookmark. The proposed work extended outside HOA jurisdiction, outside any recorded easement, and onto excluded private property. "Stop work," he said. The foreman, who had been prepared to argue contractors' wages and deadlines, handed over the change order packet, and here's another twist, admitted that their internal emails made the plan clear. Once frontage work was in place, the homeowner would be pressured into signing. The deputy read the highlighted line aloud. "We know the lot is technically out, but once frontage work is in place, he'll have no practical choice except to sign." Karen's face didn't flush with anger. It emptied. That brittle, stunned vacancy people get when their inside voice shows up in public. The judge granted the injunction that week: stop work, no trenching, no lighting, no drainage work on my frontage, and no HOA enforcement against my parcel, no filings, no threats. The bogus map was retracted. The management company issued a correction stating my tract was not subject to Briar Glen governance. The rejected maintenance memorandum was clarified and recorded properly so future title searches would reveal the truth. Insurers balked at covering intentional encroachment once the email surfaced, and the board had to fund restoration escrow out of pocket. Contractors removed markers and restored the strip they had no right to touch. Karen was forced out as president and barred from serving again as part of the settlement. The ending was almost anticlimactic. No fireworks, no dramatic speeches, just workers coming back under supervision to undo what they had no right to start. Fresh soil, removed stakes, clean paperwork, a quiet road. My attorney brought the signed order. We sat on the porch with takeout barbecue and 2 cold beers and read the last page twice because it felt good. A neighbor slowed, gave a thumbs up, and kept driving. The entrance lights came on across the wall they cared about, and none of them lit my land. Here's the part that lingered, the moral I didn't plan to preach, but that arrived anyway, soft as a weathered truth. Paper bullies look powerful until the paperwork turns around. Rules can be weaponized by people who mistake policy for principle, and sometimes the only thing that protects a small patch of land is stubborn record-keeping and the willingness to show up with evidence, with witnesses, and with a surveyor who knows stakes from stories. This fight wasn't about revenge. It was about getting the record straight, about making the space between we say and it's recorded have teeth. So yeah, justice felt a little like satisfaction, not dramatic, just correct. But it also leaves a question I want you to chew on while you scroll. When rules are used as weapons and bureaucracy becomes a bludgeon, do we call the pushback justice, or does it look too much like vindication? Where is the line between protecting what's yours and turning the law into a personal cudgel? Tell me, what would you have done? Was I right to press every piece of paper and make a spectacle of the truth? Or did I escalate when neighborhood diplomacy might have worked? Drop a comment about right and wrong, about karma in courtrooms, or tell a time when you had to stand your ground and force the record to reflect reality. If this story landed with you, like, share, and let's get the conversation going. I want to hear whether you think the line held or if power still wins when it gets clever enough.